Which were those moments which actually shaped you the leader that you are today?
So I think one of the most shaping aspects of military training is this transformation wherein the individual who enters as a trainee is often quite harshly and brutally physically actually rubbed into the ground and made to overcome their sense of self value and self importance at the initial stage, so that then they are ready to imbibe a purpose which is larger than themselves.
How would you guide the students if there is something that is disturbing them, and how do you bring this concept of self-awareness into their awareness?
It's a very big question and a very big subject, but I go back to the basic thing of you have to first understand that there is no such thing as reality, or there is no such thing as a situation. It is how we perceive it.
They are already preparing to become a leader, because these are the qualities that a leader should have. Not afraid to fail, not afraid to take initiative.
Do not say not afraid of challenges.
Okay.
Afraid of challenges, but with the courage to overcome them.
Wow, yes. Hi everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Unmute Yourself, where we talk about real, raw and unfiltered conversations. I'm really excited about today's episode. Reason being, we are going to talk about leadership and self-discovery, and that too right from the battlefield to campus. We have with us today Brigadier Steve Ismail, Dean of Students, Shiv Nadar University. With over 3 decades of decorated military service, he has led it with courage, resilience, and deep responsibility and respect, and the determination that we see in our soldiers at the border. And the interesting part is now he is leading his students with the same values that he has imbibed in the battlefield. So without further ado, let's welcome Brigadier Ismail to our podcast today. Hi, sir. It's great to have you here. Such an honor. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me and an honor as well.
Great. So today we are going to explore a lot more about leadership and all. And let's begin. So my first question would be, in the military background that you have, more than 3 decades, which were those moments which actually shaped you the leader that you are today?
Well, I joined the military after pretty long training. And military training, I think the first and foremost purpose of initial military training is to shape and mold an individual to negate themselves. Now, this is contrary to a lot which is there outside the military, where everything is about yourself and your own achievements. But the military teaches you initially, it breaks down the self and it builds you up into an instrument which serves a purpose larger than yourself. So I think one of the most shaping aspects of military training is this transformation wherein the individual who enters as a trainee is often quite harshly and brutally physically actually rubbed into the ground and made to overcome their sense of self value and self importance at the initial stage, so that then they are ready to imbibe a purpose which is larger than themselves.
Wow. So is it any different than what is shown in the movies? Like when you're talking about physically, they are just put in the ground and all those things that they're in the name of discipline, that because military is a very disciplined academy as such. So the movie Laksh came into my mind. So is it as it is depicted in the movies, the Bollywood movies that I'm talking about, or life is really different and there's another side to the story as well?
Movies are 2 or 3 hours, out of which the depiction of training may be for 10 or 15 minutes. But when you are under training, it is 24/7 and the whole year. And it's not about discipline so much. It's more about meeting certain standards which are non-negotiable. And those standards initially are alien to a normal, when I say normal, I mean a person who's not a soldier who just comes in. So because it is rooted in battlefield wherein there is no scope for mistake.
Okay.
You
True.
are dealing with an enemy who is as professionally competent and as committed, as devoted to his cause as you are to your cause, and therefore will not forgive you if you make a mistake.
Wow.
So there is no other profession in the world where the cost of failure is very high. It is in blood and lives. And also where there is no fudging. You can fudge during training, you can fudge during assessment, but when you're up against the enemy, you cannot fudge because the enemy will test you.
True. So, sir, the one word particularly that we are talking too much about it in corporate world, which is resilience. Right now, when you are saying that there is no scope for mistakes, right, in the battlefield, and when we are talking about resilience, how do soldiers take care of their emotional and mental well-being? Because obviously the training is there. So day 1 to day 100 to day 300, definitely the difference would be there. But to the new joinees, the young generation, when they join in for the training, how easily do they break up and how do they just toughen up and face the situation? So जो हम कहते हैं ना दिल से आता है वो, जब तक जुनून नहीं होगा अंदर से कुछ करने का.
तो दिल से जो आने की बात है वो पहले दिल बनाना पड़ता है.
Exactly.
और दिल बनाने में बहुत कसरत लगती है. इट्स नॉट ईजी. एंड मिलिट्री ट्रेनिंग बाय डिजाइन, चाहे वर्ल्ड में कहीं पे भी हो, जो बेसिक ट्रेनिंग बोलते हैं, जैसे जो हमारे बेसिक जो स्टूडेंट या जो यंग ग्रेजुएट एंटर्स फ्रॉम द स्ट्रीट आउटसाइड, that we call basic military training.
Okay.
So basic military training जो है उसका जो जोर होता है वो पहले बुनियाद लगाने की होती है, यानी कि to make that person physically resilient, physically strong, mentally strong, mentally tough. And the only way you can do that is by putting a person outside their comfort zone, because growth takes place at the edge of your comfort.
That's so true. Moving out of the comfort zone, only the growth would be there then.
The corollary to that is that if you want to improve or you want to grow or you want to increase in any domain, then आपको अपने comfort के किनारे पे जाना होगा और उससे बाहर जाना होगा. And that is the only place where you will grow. And it is by the time your military training is completed, your basic military training, I'm talking about the basic military training, your comfort zone becomes very large. So I remember I was in Indian Military Academy. I was heading the training team there for a little over 2 years. And there was some event and there was one yogacharya who had come there, and we were just talking, and he was saying that we conduct workshops for and it helps people to reduce stress. And आजकल स्ट्रेस बहुत होता है और इससे करने से जो है स्ट्रेस आपका मैनेज हो सकता है. तो आप अपने यहाँ पे जो ट्रेनीज हैं उनके लिए यू शुड ऑल्सो थिंक ऑफ समथिंग लाइक दैट. तो मैंने उनसे कहा, और ये मैंने पहले से सोचा नहीं था, सवाल जब सामने मेरे आया तो मैंने कहा कि यहाँ पे हम स्ट्रेस घटाने की बात नहीं करते हैं, हम यहाँ स्ट्रेस बढ़ाने की बात करते हैं. Okay. और हम यहाँ स्ट्रेस घटाना नहीं चाहते, हम बढ़ाना चाहते हैं.
Have to be on your toes.
क्योंकि जो भी हम यहाँ पे करेंगे ट्रेनिंग के दौरान वो वास्तविक हालात से कम होगा. जब एक्चुअली, और ये मैंने पाया भी, लाइक वट एवर ट्रेनिंग आई वेंट थ्रू, आई हैव बीन थ्रू 9.5 years of military training, because I was in Rashtriya Indian Military College, which is a military school in Dehradun, a unique one of its kind in the country, established in 1922. From Rashtriya Indian Military College, I went to National Defence Academy. From National Defence Academy, I went to Indian Military Academy. So 9.5 years I was doing this basic toughening and military training of some kind. I started off as a very weak and small boy. मैं 10वीं क्लास तक मैं अपने कक्षा में सबसे छोटा, कद में सबसे छोटा था मैं.
Okay.
तो अब धीरे धीरे जो ये बनता गया, तो the point I'm trying to make over here is that we were first conditioned And then only you can say, जैसे आप कह रहे थे कि how to manage, कि वो resilience की बात की आपने. Your question was about resilience.
Resilience, correct.
So resilience means that something is bouncing back. You are being pushed away from your comfort or away from your natural position, and you are then bouncing back or reverting. In order to do so, you have to have done so many times.
True.
And it's only that way that resilience gets built, and military training builds resilience, and particularly for the army. Now, I am from the army, and I am from the infantry, which is the fighting arm of the army. We are the arm जो दुश्मन से close करके दुश्मन से वार करता
सबसे
है.
आगे.
Yeah, so we are the fighting soldiers. And I can only speak for the army. I'm not speaking that much for the Air Force or the Navy over here. It is only when you join your unit, that is your जो आपका regiment या battalion होता है, तब आपको वास्तविक रूप से पता चलता है कि शक्ति क्या होती है. क्योंकि वहां पे आपके ऊपर एक और, पहले तो सिर्फ आपके पीठ पे आपका 20 किलो का पिट्ठू था. अभी आपके कंधों पे जिम्मेदारी की भी बोझ आ जाती है.
करेक्ट.
Now you are doing also with responsibility. And you are many times you are not sleeping for 3 to 4 nights at a stretch.
Wow.
So you are tested beyond, so your comfort zone becomes so large that it gets very difficult to push you out of your comfort zone.
Wow. That's really difficult. I mean, thinking of 9.5 years of just training, and then we say कि medical की training सबसे difficult होती है because it's a long. Now, what the viewers who are listening to us, we see army. Okay, no, they just get the training, NDA, IMA, and then into the army. No, the training does not stop there. It is ongoing, and it is a really, really brutal one, if I can say so. So, sir, moving on to the next question, how did you translate your battlefield responsibility to your role into the dean of the students? Because the meaning of leadership is very different in both the cases.
I don't think the meaning of leadership is different. I think the expression of leadership is different. So, leadership essentially lies in knowing the way, showing the way, and going the way.
Wow.
So knowing the way means what are those values, because you have to, leadership is based on a concept of performing a role larger than yourself, no matter which domain you are in. If your leadership is about khud ka glory, khud ka achievement, then that is not really leadership. That is self-promotion. It may pass off as leadership.
Correct.
But leadership is about winning trust. Because leadership is tested in crisis. Leadership is not tested in normal times. So when people are in crisis, whether it is military crisis, चाहे गोलियां चल रही हो, या it is workplace crisis, या it is emotional crisis, then people tend to revert to their default settings.
Correct.
And if the leader has not been able to build that connect and that level of faith and trust that there is someone here who is upholding what is required in this particular situation, and our best option is to follow this person or to do the way this person is saying. But that doesn't come by authority, because even in the military, people think कि authority है, discipline है. लेकिन जब गोलियां चलती हैं, I can tell you very clearly, authority वगैरह सब हट जाता है.
Correct.
उसके बाद में it is faith and trust. अगर उस ऑफिसर ने ट्रस्ट, विश्वास, भरोसा कायम किया है, which takes years, then people will be emboldened and they will follow and they will be inspired. So same applies. Now when you talked about transition from battlefield to dean of students, yes, definitely in the armed forces, it's a different mandate. We are a different purpose. It is the instrument of last resort of the nation. If we fail, there is nothing left.
There's nothing left.
After the armed forces fail, there is nothing left.
Correct.
So definitely when I joined here as a dean of students 2 years ago, I myself had some trepidation that how will I adapt? How will I adjust? But I found that I was quite quickly able to adapt myself, and I was provided with an opportunity actually to reinvent myself and to grow as a leader, because again, if I were to say that my military experience, that is the end all and be all of leadership, and iske baad mere ko there's nothing for me to learn, that is a mistake which a lot of people make.
Correct.
They come out of a particular setting and a particular environment, and they assume that just because I have put in 30, 35 years in a particular setting, so I know it all. There have been many opportunities over here in my interaction with bright young minds, bright students over here. There have been many occasions where I have found myself putting my foot in the wrong place. And I have acknowledged that. And I have even apologized to students at times if I have acted in a manner which may not have been appropriate or which may have not been fitting to the setting. So I am also learning. And I think one of the greatest things about leadership is that you should have the humility to continue to learn.
Exactly.
Because the day you think that you know it all, or the day you think that you have nothing more to learn, that is the day when you start becoming part of the problem and not part of the solution.
Exactly. I mean, that's so beautifully put, that yes, the humbleness to even acknowledge, okay, fine, I did a mistake, and then apologizing for the same. Because when we talk about leaders, the way it is perceived, it is like, okay, this person is the leader and these are the people who will just follow whatever is being said. But as you mentioned correctly, that it is authority, it is the trust which is built over years. Now, when we talk about a third aspect to it, that would be taking responsibility, right? The sense of ownership that is there. So, be it in army or be it with the students, when we talk about taking responsibility, the ownership, I think it is one value which is missing from most of the aspects in life. So how is that important? The importance, yes, in army, definitely you have said, so that you are not only responsible for yourself, but your entire team. There are people depending on you. But when we talk about students, how can students, how do I put it, like take responsibility, or they understand how important is it to have that kind of ownership and accountability, be it studies, be it sports, be it any area of their life?
So, first of all, I'd like to give a big shout out to the students of Shivnada University and also of all universities and all schools and colleges. They are the future. I am not.
Yes. True.
So, I always look at students, when you talk of students, here we're talking of possibly the college students or the people who are, about 17 to 20, 21 years of age. So, I always remind myself that I'm looking at the crafts people of the future. I'm looking at the architects who are going to build, जो भविष्य का निर्माण करने जा रहे हैं, मैं उनके सामने खड़ा हूं, उनसे मैं बात कर रहा हूं. I always make sure, because when I was 17, 18 or 20 years old, I'm sure I was much more limited than many of the students I see around me today.
Very true.
So if I talk today with the kind of life experience which I have behind me, I need to guard against being too ready to say that, oh, they don't take responsibility or nobody's, being responsible today. True. I think that a lot of students take a lot of responsibility. They also are growing up in a time when I thank my stars that I did not grow up in this time. Because with social media, with all the other distractions they have, with all the peer pressure they have, with the fear that it generates in the mind that will I make good, will I be good enough, will I get a job, what's going to happen, the kind of stressors that are there, they are really coming up and growing up in a much more, I would say, hazardous environment than I ever grew up in. So
True.
Therefore, True. I would like to firstly, compliment all young people for that, for juggling all these things. That said, coming to responsibility, you asked about the students, learning to be more responsible. Now, the word responsibility comes from a word in, I think, Latin, which is respondere, which means to answer for or to promise.
Okay.
So, responsibility, I think, starts with people misunderstand responsibility. कि अगर मैंने responsibility ले ली तो इसका मतलब मेरी जवाबदारी, मैं गलती मेरी है.
हाँ.
That is a wrong understanding of responsibility. Responsibility is ownership. It is ownership of all that is good and bad in a situation, with the understanding that I am here to contribute to improving that situation.
True.
So I'm part of the solution. Now, students today have moved beyond, when we're talking about again college students, so you have moved beyond your childhood. In your childhood, where you were totally in your parents' home or wherever you grew up, your identity was more defined by the family you had and the kind of culture you were in. As you go out, जैसे जैसे आप अपने घर के वातावरण से बाहर निकलते हैं, आप बाहर जाते हैं, तो आप भिन्न प्रकार के लोगों से आपकी मुलाकात होती है, भिन्न प्रकार के लोगों के साथ आपको काम करना पड़ता है. And many a times it is not necessarily people who you like working with or you enjoy working
So
with.
true.
And to take responsibility means to take yourself seriously. Because remember, wherever you go, you will be part of something bigger than yourself. No matter which profession you go, आप किसी भी दायरे में जाएं, आप पे जिम्मेदारियां होंगी, आप पे अपेक्षाएं होंगी और आपको जवाब देना पड़ेगा अपने काबिलियत के और अपनी जो भी आप कर रहे हैं, करने जा रहे हैं. सो you need to understand that will not come overnight. So responsibility will only come when you start practicing responsibility, when you start building it into your daily life, when you start managing your day-to-day schedule, when you start prioritizing your tasks, when you start taking accountability for why things did not go well. Suppose I did not do well in a test. Is it because I did not sleep the previous night? Then somebody told me, oh, sir, I was pulling an all-nighter. I did all-nighter, so I couldn't give the exam properly. So my question to them was, what was the reason for you to have to do an all-night study before the exam? It shows that you have left everything to the last minute.
Correct.
There is no exam for which you have to study all night the day before the exam. So therefore, you are not being responsible to yourself. So these are many examples. And similarly, I mean, when you do work in clubs, societies, events on campus, when you are working in a project team, many a times what happens कि आप 5 लोग कोई प्रोजेक्ट कर रहे हैं और उसमें से जो है 2 ही लोग काम कर रहे हैं और 3 जो कुछ नहीं कर रहे हैं, और उनका फिर भी वो चाहते हैं कि उनका नाम उसके ऊपर लिखा जाए. और many a time students ask me कि I don't feel good about this. मेरे को अच्छा नहीं लगता है कि I am working, I am doing all the work, this person is doing nothing. But my point to them is, why are you looking at that person? You look at yourself. It's just like you go to the gym. आप जिम में जाते हैं, आप खुद की ताकत बढ़ाने जा रहे हो या दूसरों की ताकत को देखने जा रहे हो? तो खुद की ताकत अगर आपने बढ़ानी है तो आप खुद अपने वर्कआउट पे ध्यान करिए. दूसरा जो है वो सिर्फ वजन नहीं उठा रहा है या वो खाली खड़ा है कोने में, आप क्यों उसको देख रहे हैं? तो आप ये समझो कि मैं अगर ज्यादा काम कर रहा हूं तो मैं अपनी काम करने की काबिलियत की शक्ति को बढ़ा रहा हूं.
करेक्ट.
और ये मेरे काम आएगा जब मैं आगे जाऊंगा. और जो आज काम चोरी कर रहा है, who is not working today, who is not taking his or her responsibility, who thinks that I am very smart, is foolish.
They're fooling themselves.
क्योंकि वो आगे जाके जिस दिन बोझ पड़ेगा, जिस दिन काम करने की जरूरत पड़ेगी, और वो उस टाइम पे वो दूसरे लोग नहीं होंगे उसके काम करने के लिए,
Exactly.
तो वो बिल्कुल नाकाम रह जाएंगे.
Exactly. करेक्ट. सो जब हम यहाँ पे रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लेने की बात कर रहे हैं, एंड आई थिंक कहीं ना कहीं जिस टाइप से आप बात कर रहे हैं स्टूडेंट से कि ओके इट इज बेनिफिटिंग देम ओनली, राइट, एंड द अदर पर्सन हु इज नॉट वर्किंग इज फूलिंग हिमसेल्फ, बिकॉज ये चीज खाली कॉलेज कैंपस तक नहीं है, ये आगे कॉर्पोरेट्स में भी जाएगी, ये ऑफिसेज में भी होता है कि व्हेन देयर इज अ टीम, वो टीम में 2 ही लोग काम करेंगे, 3 काम नहीं करेंगे, बट रिपोर्ट में सबका नाम जाएगा, ओके द एंटायर टीम हैज वर्कड फॉर इट. इसके लिए सेल्फ अवेयरनेस होना बहुत जरूरी है. तो जब हम बात करते हैं लीडरशिप की, जब हम बात करते हैं सेल्फ डिस्कवरी की, सो दैट सेल्फ अवेयरनेस कम्स इनटू पिक्चर, द सेल्फ अवेयरनेस, सेल्फ एक्चुअलाइजेशन, रियलाइज, सो देयर आर डिफरेंट वर्ड्स टू इट. सो व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट दैट, how would you guide the students if there is something that is disturbing them, and how do you bring this concept of self awareness into their awareness?
So it's a very big question and a very big subject, but I go back to the basic thing of you have to first understand that there is no such thing as reality, or there is no such thing as a situation, it is how we perceive it. So there's a very famous book, very written long back after Second World War, called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Now, he was a man who was a psychiatrist before the war, but because he was from the Jewish community, so he was imprisoned by the Germans and he was put in a death camp. All his family, virtually they all died, and along with most of his friends died. He somehow survived. But one of the things that he's written in that book is, this book was published long ago, more than 60, 70 years back. It's a very small, thin book. He has written that everything can be taken from a person, but the last of all human freedoms, the freedom to choose how to respond in any situation. So when you are faced with adversity, you need to ask yourself, is this situation so bad? Or am I not prepared to handle it? So this is another thing where military training, when we talk, I'm a soldier. I'm talking here from the perspective of somebody who has trained to be a soldier, who's trained to face adversity. You will always find in any situation, like when we are dealing with our profession, military profession, you're dealing with an enemy who is as professional as you are.
True.
You're dealing with weather, which is unpredictable. You're dealing with terrain, ground, which is as it is. You cannot modify it. So you are supposed to complete your mission with the situation as it presents to you and not as you would ideally want it to be.
True. That's so profound.
So therefore, the same is with life. You have to build yourself up gradually, and I don't expect that every 17-year-old or 20-year-old will be in this position. Okay. Don't think I'm being too harsh or I'm not understanding your situation. You have to build yourself up to that point where I can always take a step to make things a little better. That is where that response to the situation comes in, which I was talking about. So in any situation, no matter how bad things are, just as a soldier always asks, what is the next best step? There's always there is a next best step. It may still be a pretty bad step, but it's better than doing nothing. And when you start taking responsibility for yourself, when you start taking responsibility for your life outcomes, then it becomes part of your DNA, just as it becomes part of a soldier's DNA. Soldier will always take initiative. Will not sit waiting for something to happen.
Correct.
So you will take initiative, and initiative means you will take पहल. आप पहल करोगे, and पहल करके आप कुछ ना कुछ उस दिशा में ऐसा कदम उठाओगे जिससे हालात थोड़ी सी सुधरेगी.
Correct.
And you should also look at strengthening yourself, because whatever may happen in anybody's life, you are guaranteed to face setbacks.
Definitely.
In your personal life, in your professional life, in everything, things may not work out the way you want. It will never go according to plan. In fact, in the army, there's a very famous, well-known saying we have in the army, that in war, the first casualty is the plan. Means जो भी आपने योजना बनाई है, वो युद्ध में सबसे पहले वो फेल होता है.
Correct.
क्योंकि कुछ ना कुछ ऐसी परिस्थिति आ बैठती है या दुश्मन कुछ ऐसा कर बैठता है कि which you had not planned for. So that is where resilience comes in. That is where your ability to adapt and your ability to pick it up from where it is and take it almost like a self-exercise. Take it as a challenge. Take it as a test. That, okay, I have been knocked down. I'm feeling terrible about this. Everything seems to have gone bad. Where is that spirit in me that I'm going to come and rise out of this? And you look at any famous person, I'm not talking famous, successful person, किसी भी दायरे में आप किसी भी इंसान को देख लीजिए जिसने कुछ भी किया हो जिंदगी में, हम केवल उसको तब जानते हैं जब वो मशहूर हो जाता है.
Correct.
लेकिन हम ये नहीं जानते कि उसका जो बैक स्टोरी है, कहां से आए हैं वो, कितनी चुनौतियों का सामना किया है,
Correct.
कितनी बार विफल हुए हैं, कितनी बार निराश हुए हैं. कोई एक ऐसा मेरे को सक्सेसफुल या फेमस इंडिविजुअल किसी भी दायरे में आप मेरे को दिखा दीजिए.
हम सिर्फ बोल देते हैं ओवरनाइट सक्सेस.
Who just landed up and was famous and suddenly he was on the stage, he or she was on the stage and getting awards. So we have to understand this. This is life. And unfortunately, the commercial interests of today, they promote this false narrative that a good life is a life with no troubles, no challenges, nothing unexpected, everything going wonderfully, two smiling grandparents, two smiling children. And that is a life to aspire for. That is not a life to aspire for. Life to aspire for is a life where you are challenged, where you grow, and where you succeed despite the challenges, despite the obstacles.
Wow. So, when we are talking about all of this, these are the makings of a leader itself. Because ये जो आप चीजें बता रहे हैं, चाहे students कर रहे हैं, अभी से कर रहे हैं, 17-18 साल के, but they are already preparing to become a leader. Because these are the qualities that a leader should have. Not afraid to fail, not afraid to take initiative, not afraid of the challenges. And that happy picture, that is not the one to aspire for, but there is something different.
I would slightly qualify.
Okay.
From a military perspective again. Do not say not afraid of challenges.
Okay.
Afraid of challenges, but with the courage to overcome them.
Wow. Yes. Very important.
Do not ever believe that a brave man is somebody or a brave woman is somebody who is not afraid. This is again something we learn. We learn in the military. And our teacher, the best teacher is live fire. Nothing teaches you fieldcraft and tactics faster than bullets coming at you.
So true.
And it is a different kind of experience which only those who have actually had fire coming onto them, they can even begin to understand. So it's not as if a leader is not afraid. A leader who is not afraid is a dangerous person because he will get his soldiers killed.
Oh, yes.
He will take unnecessary, meaningless risks. Whereas leadership and courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the ability to overcome fear.
Wow, that's really nice. Not the absence of fear, but to overcome the fear.
The ability, develop the ability to overcome your fear. So never for a minute, this is where when we use words like leadership, and a lot of people, when they hear these words, they get very daunted. They get very scared. And they think, in their heart of heart, they're listening and they think, यार ये बड़ी-बड़ी बातें कर रहे हैं लीडर, ठीक है, ये होंगे ऐसे लोग, लेकिन मैं तो ऐसा नहीं हूँ. क्योंकि मेरे में तो वो धैर्य है नहीं, मेरे में तो वो हिम्मत है नहीं, मैं तो एक आम इंसान हूँ, ये पता नहीं किसकी बातें कर रहे हैं. So I want to get rid of this concept. Leader is not somebody up on a pedestal like is shown to you in a movie.
True.
A leader is an ordinary person who does extraordinary things.
True.
And they do extraordinary things not solo. It's not a solo act. They do extraordinary things by inspiring others to join into the effort and to achieve unitedly what cannot be achieved by any individual.
Single person.
And we have seen this. Even in battle situations, we have seen that there are soldiers who is a very ordinary soldier. He is not even known much to be very good at something or very competent or very high achieving person. But in that moment of crisis, where is a split second, you suddenly find that that individual who you never looked at even twice is the one who takes charge of a situation and does something which later on is seen that what a brave thing he did or what a great thing he did. Because of him, the situation was saved.
Wow.
So leadership is nothing fancy. A lot of people make this mistake. A lot of people who talk about leadership also make this big mistake. They paint it as something so extraordinary, so lofty, and so glorious that a normal, average human being gets scared.
True.
So don't get into that mode. Leadership starts with self-leadership.
Exactly.
First, you know yourself, you know your limitations, you work upon them. When you work upon them, you grow. You face setbacks, you overcome setbacks. You learn, you build trust. And then you move forward and you lead. And if you are walking ahead and nobody is following you, then you are not a leader. You are a leader because of the purpose you serve, or you're a leader because of the team you lead.
Because of the team you're leading, correct.
Yes.
You're not an
So
individual.
it is not a glory. People think that, it's a kind of a self-glory. It's not a glory at all. There's humility involved.
Correct.
There's service involved.
Wow. Great. So coming to our last question, how do you balance authority and empathy when guiding students?
So authority is something which is bestowed by virtue of a position you hold.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that is a position within the armed forces, whether it's a position as a dean of students, or it's a position in any walk of any corporate setting or anywhere. So you are, an individual is assigned a certain role, and that in completion or pursuit of that role, the individual is vested with a certain authority. Certain things that they are supposed to do and supposed to be responsible for overseeing that it happens that way. So as a dean of students, again, I have certain authority. But empathy, when you talk about empathy, again, it's a word which is bandied around a lot. And it's a very mushy kind of a word which a lot of people like to use. And a lot of people like to think that I am very empathetic and I am a very good listener. Everybody you ask, what are your qualities? They say, I am a very good listener and I am very empathetic. And actual fact is that most people, there have been studies on this. I have read up quite a bit on this. There are more, there are just about 20 to 25% of people who are genuinely empathetic. But I think everybody thinks they're empathetic. There are very few people who would say, I'm not empathetic. So empathy actually lies in not necessarily agreeing with the other person but in being able to see what they are seeing. True. Or being able to perceive the perspective that they are perceiving. But at the same time, I think when it comes to authority is you are functioning as a institutional position. So I used to say this in the army also, and I continue to say and practice it in my role as Dean of Students. Most people are not able to separate the personal from the institutional. So for example, if a student has done something very wrong and they have been punished, they have been suspended for one semester, and then you have the student who's crying in front of you, then you have the parent who has landed up and the parent is also crying and saying, give him another chance. And then you have a faculty who calls you up or sends you an email and says, she or he is a very good student, please consider. So if you act as an individual, you will immediately follow the same human approach of saying, okay, well, poor girl or poor boy, and somebody says, oh, they're the only child, and oh, grandmother is also sick, and that has also happened. And so many things are there. As a dean of students or as a military leader or in any leadership position, you are not put there to join into just becoming, sympathetic and making exceptions everywhere. So you have a larger role. Your larger role is to uphold the values of the institution.
Correct.
And if somebody has violated the values of the institution egregiously, badly, and if you let them off as if nothing happened, firstly, you are not upholding the values. Secondly, the person will learn nothing. The person will, in fact, get reinforced in the belief that I can always find a way out. When we talked earlier about responsibility. So your responsibility as a student is also to be aware that your choices and your actions have consequences.
Correct.
And those consequences you have to own. Adulthood is not by age of number of years. Adulthood is by temperament.
Correct.
You become an adult the day you start owning everything you do, good and bad. The day you start clearing up the mess. The day you are responsible that, okay, if I get suspended for a semester and I have to do an extra semester, so it's not my parents who are paying the extra fees. It is I who will pick up. Yes, then you're an adult.
Yes.
So, acting as an institution requires you to separate your personal preferences and to be able to say that what are the values I'm upholding here. So, for example, if there's a situation wherever if I am in any doubt or if I am in a situation, after all, I am human, though a lot of people who deal with me may think I'm not. But so I ask myself, I don't ask myself what would Steve Ismail do. I ask myself, what would a good dean of students do?
Correct.
So if a good dean of students would do a certain thing in that position, then that is what Steve Ismail as dean of students should do.
Beautiful. So separating the person from the position.
Yes. You have to have an institutional response.
Correct.
So there are a lot of people who everybody thinks that, but you must understand my position and you must make an exception for me because I have these extenuating circumstances. You are not learning any life lessons if you continue to believe that life will make exceptions for you.
True.
Life will not make exceptions for you.
That is so true. Great. Thank you so much. So that brings us to the end of this episode. And we learned from the journey that when we talk about leaders, it starts from self-awareness and it builds up to self-realization. But what is more important is self-regulation, right? Taking that ownership, that accountability, and being ready for the consequences as well. We learned that leadership is just not about the titles. Right? Leadership is actually getting on the ground with your team and working and then leading them. It is all that. So for you, we have one question today, that which is one area where you would want to take responsibility and act out with courage. That would be all for today's episode. We'll see you again. Keep leading with confidence, courage, and conviction. See you around next time. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I enjoyed that.
Oh, great. Same here. Thank you.